Now, smoke from Canadian wildfires is clearing out, but for much of the week, it's blanketed the state, putting our air quality at unhealthy levels. Dan Sitzo, a Purdue professor of atmospheric science, joins us now. Dan, we know the smoke in Indiana is coming from the 500 or so wildfires burning in Canada, but why has Indiana been receiving some of the worst impact?
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's a bit of a luck of the draw. Unfortunately, our weather has been coming from the north, and that's been winds coming from the Canadian wildfire area and blowing down over the upper Midwest. And unfortunately, we've gotten a lot of that, as well as the East Coast getting a lot of that over the last few weeks.
What exactly is in this air, and why does it make people sick?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's the gases and the particles that are being emitted by these wildfires. And so unfortunately, it's a bit like getting a face full of smoke from, your campfire or something like that. And so what's triggering a lot of people is that those particles can cause inflammation. So for those that have cardiopulmonary problems as well as asthma, they're getting a lot of those particles into their lungs. It's causing those problems. And that's what's triggering a lot of the health effects that we're seeing right now.
Now, as we are talking, the sky is less smoggy. It's not as visual, but is it safe outdoors?
Yeah, the good news is that after the winds have sort of moved some of this off to the east, and we had that intense rain yesterday, that's helped clear our air out. And so that's led to much better air quality for our residents. So except for those most at risk now, it is safe outside. And certainly the visibility is one thing that we can see that these particles are there, but people should be monitoring their air quality, listening to the weather, looking at meteorology apps. They often contain air quality index, and that'll help them understand if they're at risk or not.
Will that index also tell our viewers what's happening with the ozone problem that often crops up in summertime?
Yeah, that's a great question. So AQI, or air quality index, is a combination of those particles that we talked about earlier, as well as ozone. That's another thing that causes a lot of health effects. Those are sort of wrapped up into air quality index. It's a bit like a sports advanced metric. So it's an easy to understand number that gives people an idea of if it's healthy or unhealthy. And ozone itself is often also reported on a lot of meteorology sites and apps. So people that are at risk should pay attention to those.
One last question. Do you see a connection from the wildfires to the drought to the severe storms that we've had?
Yeah, our climate is changing right now, and as most people know, it's getting warmer, and that's leading to drier conditions in a lot of the U.S. and Canada, and that's part of what's triggering this. Certainly, our warm season is extended earlier, and it extends later in the year, and so we're seeing a longer fire season, and so certainly droughts, climate, and wildfires are all connected.
Thanks very much for being with us. That was Dan Sitzo, professor of atmospheric science at Purdue.